Welcome, everyone. We are continuing the White Cloaks rewatch of the show. We're on episode 4. This is the middle section, or the boring section, although we're going to do our best to make this entertaining for everyone because we know that the show certainly isn't doing that. Joined, as always, by Pips and Alex, and our special guest today is A Man of Manetheren, the Man of Manetheren, Nathan himself. Welcome, brother. How's it going?
I'm living the dream. How about you fellas?
We're doing good. I'm on wine. What are you guys drinking?
I am
Well,
also on wine with you today. I got
Oh my God,
some Pinot
solidarity.
Noir. I was trying to channel my inner Dane Bornhold.
I got a Sammy Adams porch rocker that I'm enjoying. Got to get the summer beer in when you can.
Touche.
I
And
have,
yeah, Nathan, go ahead.
yeah, I've got a nice glass of or bottle of Pinot Noir.
We got two Dane wannabes here today. Awesome. No, I'm feeling the love, guys. Thank you, thank you. We're gonna get wine drunk together, and Alex will probably stay sober because he's drinking American beer. Oh, I kid, I kid. So Nathan, the other thing we generally ask after we get through what the drinks are is just ask our guests what their connection is to Wheel of Time and where their passion for the series comes from. So tell us a little bit about your own history with the books and how you came about to being a big fan.
Well, my history goes back. I was in college. That's kind of standard fare, I guess, for a lot of people. Back in the late '90s, a buddy of mine was reading the books, and I decided I would give it a shot. And it took me a few tries to get through it for whatever reason, probably because I was in a big Tom Clancy mode rather than fantasy, and hadn't really hit my fantasy stride until 5 or 6 years later. But when I finally picked up the series again after I got married, uh, really enjoyed the books, and then we started having children, and then reading kind of went by the wayside. And so then I heard they picked up the show, and I figured, well, I'm not going to have the time to read. And I think I got through 6 or 7 of the books. I figured I would get them on audio and listen to the rest of the series the rest of the way through, and have done that. Uh, and I absolutely loved how everything wrapped up. I mean, the few typical complaints notwithstanding, but just really enjoyed it and was really looking forward to the show, despite not hearing anything because I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention on who the producer was or the showrunner or whatnot. Um, and then uh, got through the first 3 episodes in somewhat of a sense of denial, but this foreboding sense of I'm just not really liking this, and then episode 4 came along, and I just
So
I was like, okay, this is. I was already trying to sit there and will myself to enjoy it, and I
so
couldn't get there.
are you saying the shoe drop moment for you happened in this episode here? And I got to ask,
Yeah.
did it happen in this middle section? Did we coincidentally get you on for this, or is it actually the Super Saiyan at the end of this that did it?
Oh, that for sure, like, cemented it, but I think it was pretty much from the start of the episode because it was a period of time where it was like, "Wait a minute, they're seriously going straight to Tar-Valon." Um,
So you're not going to get
they've
Kmart.
now. Right, and they've no White Bridge, n none no spray, nothing, and they are now going to spend episodes, it seems like, where they're not doing anything in the books outside of just member berries. And and then they spent 3 episodes completely separate from the plot, making up their own stuff. And I was just like, okay, this is beyond the pale. Um, and I started really kind of recognizing that, you know, this was not and outwardly recognizing this is not adaptation. This is fan fiction. I'm I'm out, and now it's full on hate mode for this show.
And you were one of the first YouTube content creators too. Arguably a bit of a smaller one, but you did have your own channel. And I know I stumbled
Oh.
on your stuff kind of early on, and we saw you on Salty Texas Seas live streams. You and Prophet of the Dragon. I don't know how active you were on the subreddit, but anyway,
Yeah,
we saw some of your
I was
videos
a
and we saw some of your reaction to it too. So
oh,
yeah, thanks
awesome.
for
Thank you
that.
for the view. Well, and I was on I had subscribed to White Cloaks. I think I heard it directly from it was either from Night's Watch or it was from Steve, but I subbed and was just kind of periodically checking in and looking at things. I never was active in terms of posting anything. Um, but I got on there, and then when all that stuff started going down, I'm like, good grief, this is let's give us another reason to start hating the show like we need anything else.
Yeah, it wasn't just the AstroTurfing campaign. It was any critical voice. 3 months after the fact, the show is dead, and they try and nuke our community because you know what? The real value for a lot of us was finding the people that we could hate the show along with along the way,
Yeah.
and they were threatening to take that from us. So we've
Yeah. Well, I
migrated
think it's what
elsewhere. We found each other, and we're doing this kind of to stick them in the eye. So
yeah, and I think that's what pissed them off so much was because the show was irrelevant, but the White Cloak subreddit wasn't.
Yeah, we were often the most active in terms of we're the biggest subreddit in terms of active users on like almost any
smallest one
time
in
you
terms of
checked.
subscribers, and
uh, but I just want to say
everybody started sounding like us too.
I just want to say
That's
that
why they thought we were brigading. But
the
sorry.
point that you made about member berries, man, I feel like I would have preferred member berries to what we got in episode 5 and 6.
And 4. All right.
It's true.
So we're
It's
starting off today. We're going to go through the middle section of this. We're going to end on a bit of a banger, but we do have, at least in this episode, there's not a whole lot. We're going to do our mid-episode break and be back with A Man of Manetheren for part 4. For those of you who are in the live chat, maybe a 5-minute break in between. For those of you watching on the YouTube, we're going to be dropping, I think, the videos Tuesdays and Thursdays. Is that right, Pips?
Yep, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern is the kind of go-to schedule, and typically at least one or two of us is able to make it out there, and I think we normally get a decent showing. So thank you
All right.
to everyone who shows up on that. It's always a good time going through the live chat as those videos premiere. So thank you guys for the support there.
And it sounds like we fixed the subtitles, we fixed the audio, so we will be able to hear the episodes as well as read along with them. But we got about 10 minutes to go until we get our first drink break. So I say we get started. Unless someone has something to say here about Leandrin and Nynaeve. She just finished her chicken.
Oh man.
Is this the
I guess
least
not.
painful part of this episode?
Yes, but it's still kind of painful.
She chose the blue Asha. Which fits, really. They're nothing more than little spies who exaggerate their own importance. The Reds are any different. We protect the world from people who would misuse the one power.
This is not true.
Can we? Yeah. Okay.
There's one line, I think, in one of the later books that kind of alludes to maybe a secondary function of the Red Aja, but their primary function is they hunt down male channelers. That's what they've done for 3,000 years. That's all they do.
So not only that, if I can go on a tangent, I got a temporary ban on one of the main subs for having conversations about this. I brought up the fact that about 2 years, so it was about 2017 or 18, so 2 years after the last book was actually published, the main sort of like fan wiki got edited to change the description of the Red Aja from a organization within the tower that's job was to hunt down male channelers. They changed it with no citation from any of the books. The wikis normally have a citation to chapter and page that they get their sources from. They changed it from the Aja's job was to hunt down male channelers to the Aja's job was to, track down and police sort of abusers and misuse of the one power, right? And so this line that,
So
that
the
they
Red
used,
Aja would equally hunt down like the
yes,
Daughters of Silence,
yes.
or
So
any of the kin that kind of got out of line or take
yes,
down
that's what
Wilders.
the
Because
wiki said,
that's not really ever mentioned in the books that it's Red Aja specific. All
which
Aes
is
Sedai are
exactly what
active
I'm
doing
going
that.
into. That what the wiki said is actually Amazon pulled directly from the wiki when they made their little X-ray content that talked about the purposes of the Ajas, and then they ported it over into this. And my point was that that's completely non-canon. There's nothing in the books that actually says that. It's a head canon of what the Red Aja will turn into after the cleansing of Sidene and after the last battle. It has nothing to do with what they've actually done historically. Um, and this change is again after the last pieces of canon information were published. This just was invented out of some activist fan who went on and edited the fan wiki. Um, and when you actually look at the sources that are available, so Robert Jordan's statements and the books themselves, you have statements like in the books where all Aes Sedai will go after a man who's channeling the power, but there's a quote saying, "But the Red Aja does little else." That is a quote from the books that the Red Aja does little else,
Well,
and
shit,
quotes
guys.
by Robert Jordan.
Here's a question for Nathan or Alex. Trivia question: Who's actually the most effective Aes Sedai at hunting down and gentling men who can channel? And what was her Aja?
It's a tactical pause. Someone is taking there, pouring wine.
Moraine or Varen.
No, it was Cadswain.
Yep, Cadsuane.
Mm.
She's
She
proud of it.
cheated.
But
She cheated though.
Paralis
She
Nets
had
helped,
her.
right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Um, but anyway, my point was that this is I don't believe in like a conspiracy to change this. I think that it's actually just lazy that the so-called lore expert that the show used just went to the fan wiki and just copied and pasted a non-canonical some person's headcanon of what the Red Aja is, and it wound up in the show. So like, why even hire a lore expert if you're just going to use literally verbatim, which is what's in the X-ray content, literally copy and paste from the fan wiki, and then end up with bad nonsense in the show where the Red Aja is doing this, one power policing. No, they're not. They're just the freaking he woman man haters society, and they just go around looking for men who can channel. That's their whole deal. That's what Robert Jordan said about them. That's what Robert Jordan wrote about them. And that's fine. It makes sense in world, and there's no reason to change that. Like it's absolutely silly.
I guess we can keep going.
That's the end of my rant. Like I said, I got a 7-day suspension because somebody said that I was harassing them when they said that they actually called me. They made personal attacks against me and made what I would say was probably harassing attacks against me because I just kept going back to here's a quote by Robert Jordan, here's a quote by Robert Jordan, here's a quote by the book, and then they would say something with no sources, and then I would say you said something with no sources, and then they would say, are you autistic, or like what's wrong with you, like are you drunk right now, do you have something mentally deficient about you? So making like
They're
personal
probably
attacks.
right about the drunk one, though, right?
Probably, but that's not a knock against me. I was watching Wheel of Prime.
Well,
Pips
and
has
what
three
wouldn't
things to say
is
about that. The first one is you must be the nicest person in the world. And in our in-person talks, I can attest to this, that you are bothered by someone calling you like racist on the internet. Like, man, you must be so nice in person that they do to you. So I guess I just want to say I'm proud of you, man. Um, the second thing is you said that change happened in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Either 17 or 18. It's been a while since I looked up the wiki. Does You can go into kind of the change log, so you can find the date specifically and who honestly the user that changed it. Um,
Might be time for another investigation.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is I'm not sure that you are not cynical enough about this conspiracy because the 2017-2018 is when the sale from Red Eagle to Sony happened, and when the discussions between Sony and Amazon were in full go. So I'm not saying it was a conspiracy, but I'm also saying that the time frame probably supports it actually being a conspiracy.
I guess my point is that my grandmother always told me don't assume sort of conspiracy when ignorance or incompetence is just as likely the culprit. um,
But that's
and
an epic debate about this show. Nathan, I know you've been trying to pipe up for a bit, so what's your point on this?
Yeah, well, there's an element of this too that makes me sit there and think, well, that means she's not denying the existence of the Black Aja with this statement. And that was something that the entirety of the White Tower denied until it became public knowledge, you know, later on in the books. So sitting there and making this kind of a statement opens the door for a much larger issue in terms of the canon anyway.
Oh,
That
that's a good
the Black
insight.
Aja didn't exist.
Because for one, I don't think the show is ever going to call them the Black Aja, and I'm doing air quotes there. I've heard rumors that they're going to call it the Shadow Aja, which is kind of dumb. But the next
is
line
is
coming
that
up
just
is
a
who would
personal
misuse the one
insight?
power, even other Aes Sedai,
Is that a personal
right?
insight, or is
Mhm.
that is there a source that you've heard where they're contemplating using the Shadow Aja?
Well, it's an unfounded internet rumor, but it sounds like something that could be easily believable.
Yeah, I could see it.
Well, it's because they don't use the same cussing. They don't use, they don't call it the taint. It's like, come on, grow up,
Well,
people.
taint the balls, taint the asshole, but it's somewhere in the middle.
They won't use the Black Aja because they're concerned it'll be racist, but they'll put Nynaeve on a cliff eating fried chicken. So, you know,
Come on, she didn't have any grape juice or watermelon.
who's the real racist here? I guess the only thing that I might say in defense of this is this not the sort of thing that like whack jobs and evil organizations like say to like, you know, we're not a hate group. We're just a people who's focused on like maintaining the purity of the American society. That might be my only thing is that Leandrin maybe like is pretending that she's not a villain, but I guess that's my only defense of this. And
Oh
uh,
God,
Can I
just
just
we
point
just
out that that's
we
actually
just
one of the more
take her from the
canon.
prologue and put it into a different context of like a black guy at a water fountain.
It's one of the more canon interpretations of characters then, because that actually is pretty similar to Leandrin's like reasoning behind becoming Black Aja, is because she has utter contempt and disdain for anyone who is not Aes Sedai. So the whole like
She's also
the sort
she's a
of one
peasant
power
girl, but slips into
supremacist.
peasant speech when she loses control, right?
Yeah, yeah. The
All
one
right,
power
chip on her
supremacist
shoulder.
thing is good.
Even other eyes to die.
Leandrin. Mind if I join you?
I was just leaving.
I hate his pants with a passion.
Are they worse than her boots though?
Red tent is
What-
open to all women. Feel free to join us for dinner.
Okay, so at this point,
There's cold chicken.
Leandrin doesn't know Nynaeve can channel. No one knows Nynaeve can channel. So why would she be interested in Nynaeve coming to join them? Is it just because she wants to munch some box? Is that what we're kind of supposed to believe here?
She's fishing for information about what Moraine has been up
Moraine.
to. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This show has got me fucking trained, man. I'm reading Sex and Everything. I think I'm only 90% right.
Is it weird that her ring is on her middle finger?
Is it? Because I can't really tell. These rings are fucking huge.
It could be. It could be on the middle finger. I don't know. I mean, it's
It could be on the ring finger. It's a giant, giant ring. It might even be on two fingers at once.
oh man, it's one of those 4-finger rings that says like, says something across them.
Brass knuckles.
And passable dialogue over. Time to get to the rest of the show.
It's White Tower full of women like her.
You'll find out soon enough.
Is Lan saying that they're close to the White Tower? You'll find out soon enough. That's one thing that he says.
The tower's
They're gonna go to the tower fast as they can.
Yeah.
Already.
I feel
If your
like
friends aren't there already, is he saying when we get there in a month's time, they might be there already? Or is Lan saying that Rand, Matt, Egwene, and Perrin might already be the day after Shadur Laguth be at the White Tower?
I think he's saying that if they're not, because I think his next line is if they're not already there, there'll be resources at the White. Excuse me, there'll be resources at the White Tower to help them find them. My thing was more like she's like, "You took me half a day's ride out of the way," and his response wasn't immediately, "Yeah, bitch, sorry, I had to get my Aes Sedai healed. Forgive me for the intrusion on your busy schedule."
Because if we didn't go here, she would have died, and then I would have died.
Because
And-
your 11 spices didn't work.
Can I just bring up look at the Hidori that Lan has? I feel like we've seen it a bunch of times before. That looks
It's
like
not holding his hair back at all, is it?
that probably fell off his head 20 times every shot. Maybe it's just me.
Resources we can use to find.
No, it looks like shit.
Wow. The other thing that irritates me about this crap is right here. We're half a day in the other direction, and it's like, come on. So now, in this whole scene and a scene that we'll get to later, it's you know, we're not going in the direction. We don't care about the boys. We don't care about anything that's actually driven us to this point, which is the enemy that's chasing us. The enemy that's chasing them has completely disappeared
Oh yeah.
and won't appear again, arguably ever this
Yeah,
season.
they got rid of the stakes.
Still, they come from the blight the other direction.
Yeah, they completely got
Right.
rid of the stakes. Instead of so the book was all building tension, right? It was there pursued constantly. Even when they got to the city, they were pursued by Padden Fane and dark friends and
Yeah.
they were constantly being hunted. And then in the
Fane's
show,
in the city. The White Cloaks are there agitating at the Queen's blessing.
Yeah.
There are rumors of strange shapes in the farms around Camelin.
Exactly.
They decide they can't actually leave Camelin. We got to go through a way gate.
Yep.
And the way gate is a way to bypass and get to where they need to go
Mhm.
and avoid the dangers that are lurking in the woods beyond Camelin. And all that's kind of
Mhm.
gone from this. So, whatever.
Yep.
This you're 100% right because it's bizarre that this is never talked about again, and it's just mind-boggling. Yeah. What's your
And I can't help but think that her comment about going in the wrong direction for a half a day is kind of like a slight criticism of its accidentally against the show itself. Like, you've taken me the wrong direction. There's no purpose to any of this. What the hell are we doing?
And here's the other thing is we'll see what the rest of this episode, but they're in a camp and they camp overnight here. But the next day, it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. Like, are they on the move at all? Like, move me half a day in the wrong direction, but why are we staying put for 2 whole days?
Yeah, why are we parked at noon?
Glamping.
It's just a
don't get
preview
it.
for the next 2 episodes.
Well,
I
I
guess
mean, it really
they
is
needed
just.
the fucking army to catch up and have the fight in the cave.
I mean, it's the thing that we've mentioned repeatedly about this thing that there's the sense of pacing in this show. Like, you guys only have 8 episodes to make this show, which was going to be like a heavy lift before you decided to like add in a bunch of garbage from like later books and the prequel and not books at all. Just make shit up. Like, it was going to be hard enough to fit in everything. And I get it that they cut a ton of stuff to make room for all of their nonsense, but at the end of the day, like, you still need to like be advancing the story, and like you have to have things happening, and you have to fit it all in there in a way that like actually moves the story along in a compelling manner. And instead they're just like, I don't know, what if we just have a bunch of standalone episodes that are mostly unconnected and have no sort of like common tone or sense of development over time? What if we do that instead? And then somebody was like, yeah.
Right. It plays
We got to get going.
into the pacing issues, and I'm gonna play this back because this might be the only instance of overacting in Hollywood where nobody says a word. Like Nynaeve's face here just it confuses the shit out of me. It's like 10 seconds.
We promised to, but
I don't know why that bothered me so much on the rewatch, but she just looks.
If you promise not to
Like-
shove him into it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm overstating that, but I'm just annoyed by it.
I just like that between the two of them, she's the
Oh.
strong, silent, stoic one.
Planes. We're lucky we saw you. We usually don't pass this way, but there are
Okay.
soldiers on the roads down south.
Just
If
the
there's
most
soldiers
drab
on the
tinkers
roads,
of
why
all
are the
time.
Tinkers afraid of soldiers?
Have you seen any weapons here?
Okay, pause, please, please, please. Let's count how many staffs people are carrying. You see any weapons, and you see Isla right there with a big fucking staff. And if you look in the background as the scene progresses, I know they're all like walking sticks or whatnot, but holy shit, Matt with that walking stick would be a freaking ninja legend, just killing everyone around him. Yes, I do see weapons around here, would be Perrin the smartass. Isla's got a staff, that guy's got a staff, everybody here, you all have weapons in hand. You can use those staffs to fight back. In fact, they're more armed than I am because I don't have an axe because this showrunner is a fucking retard.
Well, he does
Sorry about
actually have that pen
I'm
knife
just gonna rub it in here,
that Matt
right?
gave him.
Hmm?
Water and follow the way of the leaf. For thousands of years, we forswear violence. And
The other thing that I noticed, there are like 8 wagons and over 50 people in that initial screenshot.
Yeah, they really hot
There's
rack
an
those
awful
wagons.
lot of people and an awful little space to be able to sit there and camp in, because where do you keep your supplies? You know, where do you do all the stuff that you're going to do around later? You know,
Oh, that comes off the
the-
food truck. But it's just look in the background here. 3 more Tuatha and they all have staffs. Boom, boom, boom. They're all carrying weapons.
Let yourself be killed.
That one behind Perrin's shoulder looks like it might even have a metal cap on the end.
Yeah. And Aram, I bet you that guy's fucking fists are weapons.
I guess what
Anyway.
amazes me so much is that Perrin acts like this is some like incredible enlightening statement that he's just like blown away by.
He's never heard of the Tinkers.
Well, I was gonna say that, and like even if we say he hasn't heard of the Tinkers, I think we've all sat down at some bar, started talking to a girl, and have her like say something about astrology, and just like, all right, cool, you're crazy. Like, moving on.
I'm a Sagittarius, so I do what now? All right,
You
that was
know
fun.
to
See ya.
politely keep your incredulity off of your dumb, stupid face.
and he just sit there with his mouth open.
It coming up might be Perrin's best mouth open of the season. It's
Yes.
power move.
Nourishes the tree that in its time grows a leaf again. Nothing is ever lost.
Does her staff have a metal cap on the end?
As I heard every time I lost a toy when I was a child.
I know Aram was completely annoying in the books, but somehow they made him more annoying in the show.
I mean, they did the same thing with Egwene.
That's fair.
I'm still waiting.
The two of them are made for each other. If they don't have the character Gowan, her and Aram are good.
Right. I don't know. Does she deserve Aram or does she deserve Gowan more?
I don't want to think about that.
Gowan. Okay, coming up is a very, very stupid line, and I'll let you know when she says it.
I think you and I have the same line picked out, Dan.
How did she know I carried an axe?
Thank
Mouth
you.
open.
Tell me, has your life been better or worse since you picked up that axe?
Pause. Alex, I'll let you go on this one, unless this is not the line we were talking of.
No, this was absolutely the line I was talking about. All I could think of, like, if I was Perrin right here, my response would be better. Before I picked up the axe, I was getting stabbed by a Trolloc. I'm not getting stabbed by a Trolloc anymore. You fucking daft bint.
Exactly. Has your life been better or worse since you picked up the axe? Well, shit. If I didn't pick up the axe, I wouldn't be alive.
What do you think? Is this maybe one of those sort of like you see this in like weird kind of like hyper liberal sort of conversation groups where it's like pro suicide, where it's like it's like non-existence is preferable, and they have like a weird sort of like pseudo intellectual existentialist argument about
What?
like why it's preferable. Maybe it's
If
like,
your enemy kills you, you win.
yeah, and maybe
That
it's
meme.
like, the existence is pain, and so ending it is preferable, and you're yeah, you would be dead, but being dead is just nothingness, and nothingness is better than suffering, or some garbage there, like
Hashtag winning. No, it's okay. So I have an economics background, among other backgrounds, but anyone who argues in favor of pacifism has not studied game theory, has not studied the prisoner's dilemma, doesn't know where innate morality comes from. But being a pacifist, so basically not responding to aggression or not responding to people who defect in a prisoner's dilemma with either a type of tit for tat or preemptive strategy or proportional strategy, they're actually actively making the world a worse place. And I can
Yes.
kind of dive into this if people want to have a more esoteric discussion about this. But this is ultimately the vehicle that Robert Jordan uses in the stories to explore this very thing. He was a Vietnam vet. He had to confront pacifists, people who confronted him in his own life about his own service and what America was doing. And he was exploring the different views about violence and war. And the Tinkers are kind of one extreme, this extreme pacifism. And at the end of the day, if you actually study this type of pacifism advocated by the Tinkers is actually immoral. Perrin clues into this kind of innately, and the end of the series with the Tinkers and how they act in the last battle, I think it comes full circle for particular characters. I'm not entirely sure if Isla's one of them, um, but yeah, Perrin never, ever, ever adopts the way of the leaf. He he knows something's wrong with it, kind of innately at the start, and this I think Pips, you're right. This is some wacky bullshit of giving them basically
just like a
too much
weird
time
nihilism.
to. Hmm?
Mhm.
It's just like some weird
Yeah,
nihilism.
Yeah, maybe
it
that's
is.
where it's coming
It,
from. And the showrunners basically love the Tinkers. That's why we get the Tinkers and not Elias. If they had to weigh about what they wanted to cut, they were going to cut Elias every day of the week before they would cut the Tinkers.
Yeah, which is such a
yeah,
bizarre decision to make. I mean, the Tinkers don't really do anything to advance Egwene's story. Like they don't really use them in a way that would tell anything about her. In the actual book, she was the young girl. This was her first outing sort of outside the village, and she actually did have like a little bit of development in like her interactions with the Tinkers and with Aram and like that sort of thing. And she, later was confronted by some of those aspects, but in the show, it's really Perrin and the Tinkers, and I guess maybe this is the only part of the entire show where they like recognize that they set him up for this like massive sort of personal trauma with murdering his wife. But they completely underdeliver. They don't do anything. There's no payoff to it. And I think after this episode, it basically never comes up again outside of like him saying that he deserves to be killed by Valda or whatever that weird thing
No, no,
was. Like
no.
it really is never
There's
played
more, but
into.
it's only because you haven't seen episode 8, Pips. We'll get
Can't
to that.
wait. Can't
Although I
wait.
think
yeah.
his veganism shows up in episode 7. So there's that other element.
Can
Not
you
only
imagine
does he
book
turn into
Perrin being a
basically
vegan?
a tinker pussy, he turns into a vegan pussy too.
Soy boy.
And I think the
Well,
only thing about what you said that I disagree with was my understanding of the Tinkers was that it was functionally Jordan's almost accusation of the US War Department, the US Department of Defense, in that their rules of engagement for American forces in Vietnam was just so asininely pacifist that it basically ended up causing them all, massive loss of life, and massive POWs because they literally weren't allowed to fire, you know,
Until they were fired on. I hadn't heard that. So yeah, feel free that maybe that was more his motivation in exploring the idea about said pacifism. Um, Because yeah, I was honestly just spitballing, but I would imagine any Vietnam War vet when they got back to the United States had to look at these hippie weirdos, like the Tinkers in this,
Gotcha. Yeah.
espousing ideas that are nonsensical and will never work in reality. And actually, if you play it through their logical conclusion, it actually makes the world a worse place.
Nathan,
Someone
do you have
punches you in
anything
the
else to
face,
say
you
here?
punch him back, because otherwise he'll punch the next person down the road, and they'll just keep punching, keep punching, keep punching until they make the world a worse place.
Nathan, do
Yep.
you have anything to say here? I feel like I heard you trying to chime in.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of seconding Dane's point because that's it. It's going to be brought up again when they almost repeat the conversation uh, during the dance scene.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
how do you respond to violence? And the answer is with justice, but no one has a real
Proportionality.
sense,
Yeah.
right? You know, and then the second point I want to make about this screenshot here is that that walking stick is oddly phallic looking.
You know what? Maybe it's a dual-use walking stick,
So it
not the
actually,
violent
It could
kind,
be
what it
but the
makes me
a
think
weapon.
of. Do you guys remember that movie A Knight's Tale?
Yeah.
You know the fist at the end of the lances. That's what that makes me
yeah.
think of. Uh, and again, it goes
Oh,
back to
ew.
it's a metal capped walking stick. And to Dane's point earlier, it's like, yeah, no one has any weapons here. It's like you have a large heavy stick with metal bands and caps. Like, what is the other purpose of that stick?
Right.
Gross. Well, we can keep going.
Yeah. Long story short, don't get black pilled like Perrin did here. Close your fucking mouth.
That's a gosh.
Fuck.
That's a 360 open mouth shot. Really, really
All
got
right.
got there.
I got another thing coming pretty
Just
soon here.
because you spun the camera the wrong way. She teleported.
All right. Can we pause right here? Or maybe give me another 2 seconds.
Oh, I
We
love
see the sunset? It's a sunset, right? Because the sun fades down and then we go to the Grinwell farm.
They're still going the
So
wrong direction.
they are going 100% the wrong fucking way. This isn't a flipped screen or anything like that. This is the end of the day. The sun goes down, and the next shot we get, we're in darkness at the Grinwell farm. If they're walking into the sunset, what direction are they going? And if you
Dane,
don't say west,
Dane, remember the point that we've talked about before about how like the map is heavily featured in the books, like the first page and the last page, like you open the covers of the book and there's a map, and then like throughout the
mm-hmm.
book there are maps, and throughout like fantasy
There are
generally
maps
there are
of
maps
cities,
everywhere,
there
you
are
know,
maps of Emmons Field,
and
there are maps of
there's no map in the show, and it's been like joked about how like yeah, because you would know how stupid it is that they show up at all these random places if you had a map to look at. And this is, I wonder if they intended to do a map as part of the the show here, and they just realized in post they were like, we're going the wrong way literally the entire season. We can't give a
and
map.
it's not just that they're going west. If you look where the sun is setting and we look at the time of
They're
year
going
and it's
southwest.
arguably autumn or near to winter or whatever, they're going southwest. They're not going northeast. They are going in the complete wrong direction.
Which in the geography of the Caroline Grass would actually be taking them back to the river and back to Shadowlogoth.
They're going to Whitebridge. This is what fucking hell. God
How's
damn, these people are ridiculously stupid.
between wedge, trying to get all
Yeah.
of those wagons through that dense forest, or going 50 feet around, to the west where there is a very clear plain. They decided they were going to try and wedge all of their wagons through the forest.
Well, that too. But here's the thing. Talk about costless, right? A costless shot. Turn all these wagons around 180 degrees and have them coming towards the screen instead of walking away from it. And then you solve everything,
I
right?
will say that
Oh,
like this is one
they're
of those.
going northeast. They're not going into those woods.
Yeah,
Whatever, we didn't see them navigate them. Not important. They're coming towards us. This is, it's a small detail, but it pisses me off that they basically didn't take the time and effort whatsoever to kind of look into this and just make sure that we have our characters moving in the right direction.
I will say that like
Then that
that's one of those things that I would almost like I could see that's maybe that's a really common mistake in film and like who cares that much, like whatever. But then I remember that this was $150 million show. Like
Yeah.
what? Sorry, Nate, I
and
cut
that's
you
one of
off.
the things that Lord of the Rings, when it was being produced by Peter Jackson, he was always conscious about the environment and where they were heading. He always said, in terms of the camera position, the Fellowship and Fellowship of the Ring always moved left part of the screen to the right part of the screen. They were progressing to Rivendell, to Mordor. He was very purposeful about where everything was. And so if the sun was setting, he knew that that his actors needed to be in a certain position for a certain scene based upon the time of day. That it's not difficult to plan this kind of stuff out and to sit there and think logically about it. It's just pure laziness.
But
Yeah.
but counterpoint, how many episodes of Survivor did Peter Jackson make it through?
Very
Oh,
good
you
point.
trumped me on that one.
Very good point. Checkmate, Peter Jackson.
I think it's
How many
funny.
did Rafe make it through?
I think almost to the finale, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think
he was
like,
trading sexual favors probably.
yeah.
Oh God.
I think it's funny you bring up Lord of the Rings because I think this is relevant for two reasons. Is the first one is you crushed it, and if you think back to Fellowship of the Ring, um, there's actually a reason that you don't see the sun much in the battle at Armand Head where Boromir dies, where it sort of has like a sort of vaguish fog over the top.
Yeah.
That was specifically so that there wouldn't be the sun because it took long enough to film it that it was basically like I want to say it took them almost like 2 weeks just to film that particular set. And they couldn't give up all of the time when the sun wasn't in the right position. So they basically had to make do with sort of the fog cover to make it look, to not have these sun and these lighting issues.
To not have like the sun change position a
Yeah,
million
but
times throughout, because that I will admit that always bothers me when you're watching a movie or watching a TV show where like you're like you see these really jarring sort of like day to night to day where it's like I get it, you filmed this like across
but
multiple days and just didn't give a shit.
let's also remember, if everything that goes into a show is deliberate, this is a sunset shot. It's a deliberate sunset shot in that when the sun finally sets, it resolves then into the lantern at the Grinwell farm.
Oh yeah,
They knew they planned this out,
I
and
forgot that they
all they
did another
fucking
stupid
had to
resolve.
do was turn the wagons around so that they're going in the other direction.
Yes.
oh yeah, Dan. Trust me, I had this cringy transition in my notes, but the other Lord of the Rings thing that I wanted to mention is if you're a Lord of the Rings fan and this is one of the things that you liked about the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings. Well, guess what, guys? Guess who is directing this, and guess who is directing an episode
Oh,
of Ring of Fire?
I know. Is it Wayne Yip?
It is Wayne Yip.
Oh, goody. Rings of Power. Gonna be great. Countdown to that disaster is like what, fucking 6 weeks?
Where's my walking stick?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. You might fucking fist someone.
All right, let's
Oh, wait,
play.
sorry. Okay, let's keep going.
Watch this transition because somebody clearly is on their first project and thinks they're Scorsese.
Okay, so Matt and Rand are mucking out the stables. Let's just look where they'd muck to, because I don't think they're actually doing any work. But anyways, let's advance.
Oh man, I was gonna say let's watch the lighting in this.
Is he just gonna stand there and let us do all the work?
What work? Rand is moving hay from 1 foot to like a foot behind.
Funny how that offer came up when you were handing out pitchforks.
Does Tom actually give a Gleeman's performance at the Grinwell farm?
No, remember?
Like it doesn't happen.
No.
So
Not on
wouldn't
camera.
that be more interesting than the 15-second constipation scene that we see coming up with Logain and Moraine and I think Karenni sitting in their chairs? Like Tom juggling, Tom telling a story, Tom playing his fucking guitar, like something like Play for Your Supper at least. Like they've established Tom is not doing the work because he's got a performance coming up, and then they don't show any of that.
We hear him inside, sort of muffled, I think, when Matt gets handed a loaf of bread by the significantly de-aged Elsa Grinwell.
Oh, interesting.
Gotcha. I was gonna
Maybe,
say,
maybe I have to retract my statement.
yeah. I was gonna say, shit, man. Best I can do is a really weird Land Moraine scene on a bed together.
No, I still think you're right. I mean, all of the world building that we got from Tom in the books, they substituted that for, a gravelly voice with a guitar from a guy who sounds like he smokes several packs a day, talking about the man who
Well, he
can't
is
forget.
French.
And yeah, I guess that's all the world building the audience needs, is that there's a man with amnesia who's sort of important, but not as important as Nynaeve.
Let's keep going.
I was gonna say, well, Dan, I have a question for you.
Okay.
That lantern in this shot,
Yeah.
what side of his face is it on?
Oh my fucking god.
Damn.
There isn't like a brighter lantern kind of
So
right outside of the frame?
there are multiple lanterns, but it is like the common problem in this show that it can't figure out where the fuck lighting is from.
There is maybe the funniest example I've ever seen when Egwene and Aram are laying together like this is a fucking CW show. It drove me to drink.
I want to know if they have a lantern behind them in there in that barn when they're doing the work.
I think we see the barn again. I'm pretty sure there's two lanterns in it.
There might be another lantern. Because I think there was one but it's not important, right? It's
Yeah.
more like, all right, if you're
Yeah.
going to frame your shot that way,
Exactly.
it does look, as Alex points out, it does look jarring when it comes
Yes.
that way. You get a light source in shot, and it's
Yes.
not actually lighting up your character.
Yes.
But it's a technical point. I'm more here for the lore and shit.
Mhm.
Speaking of, the fuck is this?
My exact reaction to watching this episode.
Good point. But let's advance a little bit, and then I can make a sex joke or STI joke. Why did they turn
really
the
did
taint
Mashadar
from
dirty?
Shadow Logoth into herpes? Right here. And it's vanishing herpes.
Right.
But
They
that's
really
what
did
it is.
Mashadar dirty.
Mhm.
There's Else. So this is Else Grinwell. Where's her doll?
It's on our left hip. I went through and watched this actually because it drove
Oh, okay. Is it in there? It drove you up the wall too?
dark. You can't see it.
Okay, so she's got it kind of in a pocket on her dress.
I think she's got it tied to a belt, but yeah.
But it's not like a
Yeah, let's just play. Let's see.
Okay. Matt gets a lot of sniffs in here.
I'm sorry.
Well, all of the men have to get the sniffs in because the women are too busy with all of the dialogue in the show.
So here's the other thing. What is the one thing we know that Matt should actually be going through because of the dagger? Because this whole fucking mouth herpes and vomiting, that's all a show insert. That doesn't actually happen. What is the one tangible effect that the Shadow Logoth daggers actually have?
Crazy levels of suspicion. He should be like, this is poisoned.
Yep.
Well, it's only been a day, but yes, exactly. You should be suspicious of others. And now it is noted in the Eye of the World that Matt actively seemed to relax when he was at the Grinwell farm and interacting with the children and juggling and whatnot. And Rand makes note of that. So we'll give him that. But if this is the only time you actually have to establish that the dagger is affecting Matt, that you choose him to throw up and have creepy shadow herpes on his mouth, but then not act any more suspicious than ever before, I think that's a bit of a failure as far as trying to stick to the story.
Well, again, I mean, we've talked about this in previous episodes. They haven't really done much to establish the dagger, right? So even like the creepy mouth herpes, right? like, or shadow herpes. At this point, it's like cool. So that's the darkness within him.
Welcome to a welcome to a post 2015 world, and you see this in Marvel all the time. Um, we don't know how to distinguish characters as evil or good because we might need them to come back. So they have now been corrupted by an item. And if you don't believe me, think of the Phase 4 Marvel movies. Gwen
Hmm.
corrupted by the rings. Uh,
I
Gore
stopped watching those.
corrupted by the sword. Wanda corrupted by the Darkhold. Because we can't establish villains as villains because we might need to bring them back for something. And this is exactly what we're seeing with Matt.
Yeah.
Drives me to distraction.
Reva
To be fair,
corrupted
though,
by Kathleen
Matt
Kennedy.
was corrupted by an item in the story.
Yes, but the way that it is, um, the way that it's handled, and the way that Moraine comes off with it's feeding off of the darkness within him.
Oh, right.
How
I think
whether or
we
not
might be getting our head ahead of ourselves on that, though, for at least this part. All I'll
Sure.
say here is ADO in the chat is saying that when Matt was throwing up, it was the actor's reaction to the story. But I think I agree.
Thank you for the bread. What's your name?
Creepy.
Why not?
Right on, girl. I
Damn it.
wonder how the writers knew how to write this line of dialogue. Probably because they fucking lived it in real life.
Well, thing is, Mom says you are too dangerous for me to talk to, but also she sent me out on my own with no supervision to give you this food.
Thank you.
That actually makes sense. We've established that all parents in the Wheel of Time are bad parents.
Seriously. That's a big fuck you to motherhood right there.
Yeah.
Negligent parents. All right.
Sorry, we have to somehow clumsily.
So how is David Hill going in your ranking here, Alex?
Well, I guess one of the
Is he ahead of the Clarkson twins or is he behind?
he's absolutely ahead of the Clarkson twins, and the reason because I just want to count the amount of exposition in this episode. Like, there is so much exposition in this episode that it is mind blowing. There is more exposition in this episode than there is in the first three.
Hey, you remember how everyone was saying that, well, we couldn't have Pat and Fane roll up into Emmons Field and just speak, like, because you're supposed to show, not tell. And you couldn't have Tom Maryland show up in the next chapter or whatever and react and say, oh, Pat and Fane, that's old news, and give a whole bunch of dialogue as world building. And you can't have Moraine actually give a proper Manetheren speech in front of everybody because, again, show, not tell. And then this fucking insert episode, this filler episode that's all about Logain, and they do nothing but talk and they don't actually show anything.
Yep. This is just such clumsy, like, well, okay, guys. We have to remind everybody that Matt's sisters are in Emmons Field alone. So we have to do that. But also, we previously established that they're very suspicious of them. How do we make these two things correspond together? Badly. We do it badly.
Stranger told me to give you her message and come right back.
He didn't.
Well, that's the other thing too. They're suspicious of them, but then why did they even accept them into doing the farm work in the first fucking place? That's what kills me. The husband sneaks up on them somehow, and her and her son sneak up on them somehow, and they're all really suspicious about these three guys walking around. So let's invite them in to work in the stables, and then we'll send out our daughter thanking them for their work with a piece of bread. None of this makes any logical sense to any sane human being.
Yep. Right?
My sisters never listen either.
Dead. Just completely fucking dead. Like, why did you even pretend that she wasn't ever going to be dead in this episode?
feel Mama and Papa?
Are you feeling it, guys?
Oh, let's keep going.
Yeah,
I'm not feeling it.
let's keep going. Let's keep going. We can talk over this shit dialogue. Another good sniff though by Matt.
That's like the fourth one in this scene.
Gita back for them. She would protect me when everyone's asleep.
Remember Barry?
I can't take your
Here's the other thing too.
Oh look, it's an Easter
If
egg.
when I was a kid,
To see the world.
if my parents told me that someone was suspicious, I would be nervous about going out to them in the first place.
You
Secondly,
wouldn't give
I
me your
certainly
doll?
wouldn't be giving them one of my toys.
Yeah, but that's because you're a
Keep going,
boy
keep going. These are good points. We can
and
talk
she's
over
a strong
this
woman.
stuff here because it. Oh man,
Maybe he called
that's
something
true.
brain spring.
Yeah, he caught fucking shadow herpes.
Owen. My nephew.
Here we go. Now the grim dark. The grim dark is about to assert itself. We really had to play Owen up.
Getting out of it.
It's a good thing he has a gravelly voice.
He does. He actually gets a lot here, and he does a fairly decent job with it. The only thing I'm going to say is Hollywood needs to get over its smoking issues because if he had a pipe, this would have gone over much better.
Fair. If he had a mustache,
True.
it would go
Smoking
even
mine.
better. What I'm looking for is where the fuck are the lanterns in this scene?
Snacking at family and friends.
Well, it's on the side of his face, but it's on the top of Tom's
above,
head.
We'll keep going. This lighting's minor.
Nobody could figure out what happened. Until he threw a rock. Without using his hands.
It's a big dick.
Matt's got all the signs left.
Okay, that's a crap line.
Matt will tell me.
This whole the rest
He's
of this
got-
scene is
he's got all
exclusively
the
the Who's the
signs.
Dragon bullshit.
And yet, the one thing that you haven't seen him do is throw a rock without hands. You haven't seen him use anything with the power, but he's got all the signs. He reminds me of Owen.
You're going to say, so what has Tom actually seen from Matt at this point?
He robbed a grave.
Jittery, maybe a bit nervous, and
And he walked
kinda
out
off-putting.
of the barn.
A little bit lazy. I don't know.
Poor.
If there are signs, like we've seen them on screen, but Tom and Rand probably weren't around there to see it either. So
I guess I just think back to the Eye of the World when Rand has the channeling sickness on the spray.
yeah,
And
this is what Matt's exhibiting is not channeling sickness at all.
that's what I mean. Like
Right.
he's not giddy, he's not careless, he's not, he's none of the things that would typically, show one having traveling sickness. So this is, him showing all the signs. It's like, no, dummy, he's showing all the opposite of the signs. He's weird, he's
Right.
paranoid. Well, he's not even paranoid, he's just kind of tired.
Well, and almost the only thing that he has to go off of is in the scene before this when Rand looks at Matt and says, "Are you all right?" Is that all that he's playing that off of? Because he didn't see him puking a minute ago with the
Yeah.
disappearing herpes.
And if anything, the other thing the only thing Tom really did see or didn't take note of was when when Matt reached behind his bathrobe for something when they were staring down Master Grinwell with the drawn bow and arrow in the previous
Oh, yeah.
rewatch episode, right?
Yep.
But that
Yep.
that doesn't speak anything as far as channeling. That just speaks to kind of paranoia, potentially, or honestly justified. All right.
Right.
Let's keep advancing because I looked up a pretty cool word that I was going to make a comment on
What
later.
do you think I told him the story since he was a little boy?
Maybe you did.
How at the end of the last age, the Dark One corrupted the One Power. So men couldn't use it without going mad.
Okay, can we I just want to say that kind of leads me to believe again they're not doing Seta inside R because otherwise he would have specified it. He corrupted the One Power so men couldn't use it without going mad. Technically canonical, but that's not the way it's ever described as far as one power being.
But nobody outside the Aes Sedai know anything about the power. Like he's not an expert You know, it's one of those like if he was a witness in a court, they'd be like, "Hey, you're talking outside of your expertise." So
Except he's
I'm willing to
apparently the
give
member
this
of
a
the
pass.
Gleeman, who are the secret
I'm
history
I'm
keepers.
willing to
But
give
we'll
this
get
a
to that.
pass. I'm not willing to give a
Right.
pass to Leandrin and all of those others who make the statements that they make. Like Tom doesn't know how the one power works. Got it. Whatever. I mean, it's Tom in the books was smarter than Tom in the show, but that's most of the characters not named Egwene.
Right. It just follows a simple premise. If you have a pool of water that everybody wants to drink from and you taint it with something, it's not just that men can't drink from it, women can't do it either. So how would you explain as the showrunner then that women can use the one power if the dark one has corrupted it? It doesn't, again,
Ugh.
not making sense.
Anyways, let's move on. We got to get through our break because I hear my dogs barking. They need their dinner.
What happened to him? The ice that I found while I was away.
More of literally everyone knowing about the vileness.
Well, this is the thing, right?
They gentled them.
Yeah, but the crime wasn't that they gentled Owen. The crime isn't gentling. Like it what the Aes Sedai do is they
They
bring
left
men
him
who can
there.
channel. They bring them to the tower. The trial is secondary because they're going to gentle you no matter what. Like it's not like you can get acquitted. Um, but they actually try and keep them alive after. What they did to Owen is they gentled them on the spot and then they left him to the
Yep.
mercy
Yep.
of his neighbors. And he didn't survive long after that. And it's the way they did it. It's not that they did it that upset Tom, it was the way that they did it. Because I think Tom would have agreed that Owen needed to be gentled. Maybe they give him a chance. What he's conveying in this scene is that he laments not being able to save him from the Reds. Why? Because Owen would have gone mad if you evaded the Reds. He probably would have killed everyone he loved or around him. Or even if he was mad and off in a plane somewhere and couldn't hurt anyone, the wasting sickness would have got him. Like, sorry, Owen was not long for this world. You're mad about the wrong things in this scene. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, I can't help but think, man, you know what would have been awesome here? Fucking flashback. Like, can I get Owen
Potentially.
right? Like, can I get Owen killing somebody? Like, can I be shown the effect of the taint on male channelers? Like, can you stop telling me about it?
Because
That
all we've
was
seen as far as the tank goes is the guy in the prologue who sees somebody and he says, "Don't hurt him."
Right.
Who are you talking to? Oh, okay, yeah. No,
yeah.
I
Sorry,
agree.
the
You know what?
cocaine
Maybe
budget kind
you
of
don't want to be
used that up.
over reliant on flashbacks, but here it probably would have worked.
I wouldn't need it if they showed it right in the prologue, but since they didn't, that's one of the huge problems with this show. Is it just by not doing things right in the beginning, it's all built on this shit foundation and it just gets worse and worse.
Problems cascade.
Cut him off from the one power forever. He got to give his life at least. Men, women, both. Once they taste the power, if they're cut off from it, it's not life anymore. It just
True enough.
slip away.
This does kind of
Not
make
true.
it sound like Tom is saying that he doesn't think that Owen should have been gentled, like that he's mad that they gentled him,
Right.
which is
And
again, like you said,
that
is
was never
not
the issue with
correct.
Owen,
Yeah,
right? It was the Reds and the vileness
yeah.
and doing it extra judiciously because at least how they've done it previously, they bring the men to the tower, they gentle them, but then they actively try and keep them alive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have some experience with that, but neither here nor there. We can keep going.
This is one of the reasons that I say that I think this is, this is some of the exposition.
Get ready to pause. Get ready to pause.
Yawned. And then he picked up a steak knife.
Pause. Steak knife. Fucking steak knife. Do you guys know when steak knives became a thing?
1965.
Huh? Pips, one more time. I couldn't hear you. It kind of broke up.
I just said 1965.
That's very close. It's a post World War II thing. You needed stainless steel.
Really?
Yeah, a steak knife was not a thing until after World War II, when stainless steel became cheap and people started differentiating between their cutlery as far as, a regular kind of butter knife or a knife to use to cut stuff, and then like a serrated sharp knife that you wouldn't have to sharpen all the time. I looked this up because it sounded weird. And yes, it's a mid 20th century invention is the steak knife. So this is not an anachronism, it's a parachronism in that we're in a kind of a historical Renaissance, somewhat medieval setting without gunpowder, and we're using fucking steak knives.
Just turn the brain off, have a beer, and consume product.
No, come on. I looked up a new word for this, man. I didn't even know there was a word. Instead of ana, it's parachronism. Parachronism. It's when the chronology is kind of out of order. Why the fuck
Yeah.
would this world have steak knives?
See, I think this is such a perfect example. We've been talking about Lord of the Rings, and admittedly, it's hard not to watch a fantasy show and talk about Lord of the Rings. But you know, it, people that have scoured those movies looking for anything to criticize have
I
come
found
up
a few.
meats back on the menu, boys. As in, how would an orc know what a menu is? And like that is the one of like 6 things that if you watch those movies intentionally trying to be a pedantic asshole, you can point out.
Which is what the whole White Cloaks rewatch is about. Let me just put that up front.
We
Yeah.
actually got a comment of someone talking about sort of being sort of petty and pedantic in these and appreciating one of our other shows. And I pointed out that like I appreciate that you like the the other sort of more uplifting content, but we're gonna continue to be petty and pedantic.
Right.
Here's the thing, though. If we could only find 6 things in our trilogy of movies or equivalent runtime, our videos wouldn't be a fucking hour long each and only cover a sixth of an episode.
That's what I mean is if I was talking about things wrong with the Lord of the Rings, a very similar fault would have been number 6 on my list. It was probably, you know, 1754 when it comes to this show. Like
Come on, steak knife ranks higher than that. That's a pretty bad fucking mistake.
Right, but there's enough of them where we need to start employing the Dewey Decimal System to keep track of them with the show.
I I drink too much to even keep track of anything with or without a Dewey Decimal System, but point is well taken.
Seriously, we need to
How
keep running this clock.
Yeah, let's keep going because we need
I've
to
already
refuel. I
finished
think
my
I'm through a
first bottle
bottle
of
of wine.
wine.
I don't know about you guys.
Like it was nothing at all.
Nathan, are you through your first bottle yet, or is that just Dan and I being lushes?
Oh no, I'm only sticking to one bottle, but I'm halfway through it.
Oh, come on, come on.
Fuck, you're keeping pace.
But whatever we do, we have to keep Matt away from those women.
Why? Why are you saying that, Tom? If you
Seriously.
think he can channel and he's going to go insane, he's going to, even if he is able to hold off the madness, he can only do it for so long. And eventually, if he channels, the wasting sickness is going to get him. Like, he's got a death sentence on him. He's not going to make it to age 23, generally, unless he swears his soul to the Dark One, and that's even fucking worse. Why is that your motivation? Because that wasn't Tom's motivation in the fucking story.
Right. In this show, the one power is not something that needs to be feared at all. I mean, every character in Emmons Field feared the use of the one power. It feared Aes Sedai who used it. It was not something that you wanted to be around. And in this show, it's okay, but we don't want men to use it because it's made for women. But that's it.
It's so much wrong. Anyways, Alex, let's get to our break point, which is coming at the end of this scene.
You know a lot for a single gleeman. Call yourself gleeman.
Worst line coming up.
The name makes us less frightening. Nothing is more dangerous than a man who knows the past.
Okay, you know how I said I studied too much and I got an economics background and a poli sci background? I also have a history minor. I know a lot of history professors or had them. I don't think they're that intimidating or dangerous. In fact, I'd say a guy with a gun is probably more dangerous than a history professor. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but you're
Well, it
undermining
depends
the
on what
whole
side of
sort
the
of
aisle you're
like
on.
you're undermining the
If you don't
whole.
want if you want to subvert history all the time and recreate it in your own image, then yeah, those kind of people are dangerous. And from the
Nothing is more
showrunners
dangerous
and
than a man
everything,
who knows the past. I
right?
don't know, man.
I'm going to hit you with something.
Oh dear.
And a quote from George Orwell, 1984.
I
He who,
have that on my bookshelf.
he who controls the past controls the future.
Is that it? Or he who controls the past controls the present, he who controls the present controls the future.
I
Dan, you're being a pedantic ass again.
Damn it, I'm always that.
All
No,
I was going to say is that you're forgetting the audience of this, which is people with liberal arts majors and Starbucks jobs, and they want to feel powerful.
Okay, so sorry. I looked. He who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. The mutability of the past is the central tenet of Ingsoc. Past events, it is argued, have no objective existence, but survive only in written records and in human memories. The past is whatever the records and the memories agree upon, and since the party is in full control of all records and in equally full control of the minds of its members, it follows that the past is whatever the party chooses to make it.
Ah, man, we mentioned
Yeah, but
Ingsoc,
I
guys.
refuse to
We've
believe that the
reached
people
peak
who made this show ever
rewatch.
read Orwell.
Oh yeah, no, this is if they were to have realized that they accidentally quoted Orwell, there would have been
Except
self-flagellation.
except maybe if David Hill realized what he was in for, he was just doing a job and kind of towed the party line for all the dialogue and everything that he wrote in this episode, but he was able to throw kind of a semi based Orwellian line into it and see if it slipped kind of under the radar.
All right, let's finish this scene and then we got to take a break. I need to get a second bottle of wine.
Nice. Hey, we did it. Holy
Ah,
shit.
There we go.
That didn't take like half a second. All right.
bam.
Everybody, thanks for coming out. We are going to probably take maybe a 10-minute break within our chat, but this will be like a 2-day break for our YouTube audience. Um, Completely appreciate everybody who likes and subscribes and comments on the video.
I'm going to take my opportunity. I think right now we're about 225 subs on the channel. Awesome. All of
Nice.
you guys supporting us is super amazing. Everything that Dane said.
We love you all. We'll be back with the rest of this with A Man of Manetheren. He's on YouTube too. So if you guys know us, but you don't know him, check him out. He makes good content covering Rings of Power. Nathan will give you the final word on this. So
Well,
either plug yourself or just say whatever.
oh, well, thanks, man. I appreciate being on. This has been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the rest of this in terms of spending time with you guys. I could give two shits about the show. Uh, but yeah, this is good therapy.
It helps when we go into this knowing what we're going into, with plenty of alcohol and yeah, with a mind to kind of enjoy just how bad this is, because I don't think they can stand that we actually enjoy ripping on this.
It's very
More
cathartic.
than a lot.
You
Yeah.
really, you get all of it out of your system. It's honestly it's pretty good. I think post rewatch is about the best that I ever feel about this show. So I think you're right on there, Dane.
Fantastic. All right. See you guys in 10. See you guys on YouTube in 2 days.
Walk in the light.